This is Phantasma by Kaylie Smith. The story basically revolves around a very rich manor, which is owned by the devil, called Phantasma. And when you enter Phantasma, you're basically subjecting yourself to 9 days of trials by the devil, all in the hopes of being able to win so that the devil can grant you one wish. So typically, those who would actually enter Phantasma are those who have things that they kind of want to be redone or erased. Those who have debt that wants to be completely wiped out, or something criminal that they have done, or even wanting to probably speak to a dead loved one or maybe bring them back. Anything that you could probably think of, you have one wish to be able to make, but that's only if you're able to survive the 9 days, which is the nine different trials as well in Phantasma. And in Phantasma, again, it is owned by the devil. It is also hosted by a lot of different devils. What intrigued me a lot about Phantasma from just reading the first few pages is they actually outline the types of paranormal beings that exist in this world. So you've got King of the Devils, Prince of the Devils, the demons, the wraiths, the vampires, shapeshifters, phantoms, necromancers, seers, specters. So there's a lot of different characters that you can encounter from this book, but most of them that you're going to encounter are the devils. You've got a phantom, you've got ghouls, and you've got some ghosts as well. And then there's like haunting things that happen in Phantasma. So, Phantasma, again, the manor itself being owned by the devil. Other than the trials, when you're not in the trial, sometimes they schedule what they call haunts, where paranormal activities happen to the contestants, and you could possibly die without even actually entering the trials. Now, again, because when you enter Phantasma, you have to willingly get into. Nobody is forced to join Phantasma, and you can actually forfeit as well, as long as you're not actively in a current trial in the 9 days or one of the 9 trials. So, before and after, you can forfeit. All you have to do is say your name and then I forfeit Phantasma, and then you're whisked away. Otherwise, if you stay on longer, you have to get through everything Phantasma will have to put your way. Now let's talk about the characters. So the story starts with Ophelia and Genevieve Grimm, sisters. They have their own necromancy business as well, because the Grimm family, the women in the Grimm family, actually come from a line of necromancers. So that bloodline is passed on from one woman to the next. Ophelia and Genevieve find that their mom is just lifeless inside their manor. Because their mother was the necromancer in the generation, one of them has to actually extract the necromancy power from their mother, which is actually Ophelia. Because Ophelia, ever since she was young, was already inclined to this paranormal world. And Genevieve is just not for it. She seems to be like the normal girl who has no inclination at all into this paranormal activity or powers or magic or anything like that. So she goes about her day, but her and her sisters are very close. One of them has to get it. Ophelia does. And so she's now feeling the weight of the bloodline in her. One for sure is making sure that she can actually get the powers from her mother, from her dead mother, and then being able to continue on the business. But she's kind of on the fence whether this is something that she can do or even wants to do. And Genevieve, her sister, is like all about choose your life, make decisions for yourself. You don't actually have to finish or continue on this business, this bloodline. It can end if you want it to. But Ophelia kind of doesn't feel the same sentiment. And their mother actually mortgaged their house, their home, without them knowing. Well, actually, without Ophelia knowing. Genevieve kind of knew about it. So when they were visited by the bank to talk about what was going on, Genevieve actually had already constructed a plan. So she heard about Phantasma, and she wanted to enter Phantasma to be able to do so. So after the bank visit and all that, she basically goes into her plan of, I'm going to enter Phantasma, I'm going to win, and I'm going to make sure we're cleared off all the problems that we have in our lives so that me and my sister Ophelia can do whatever the hell it is that we want in life. Ophelia didn't know that. So when she came back home, because they kind of had an argument, Genevieve was nowhere to be found. She went around and then she actually saw her sister's diary. And Genevieve actually had mentioned her plans and what she wanted to do. And so she's like, oh my God. So Ophelia takes it upon herself to also enter Phantasma so that she could find Genevieve, get her out, and then see what happens from there. But basically, that's the point. She wants to enter Phantasma to find her sister and then get out of there. However, as she enters Phantasma, a world for her, really. She's able to determine more about her power. She's able to know more about herself. And she meets a phantom, Blackwell. And Blackwell is one of the ghosts or a phantom in there who's just part of Phantasma. He's been there since who knows how long, maybe since the inception of Phantasma, and chooses a contestant and kind of tries and forms a blood compact with them, basically a blood promise that he will do whatever it takes for this person to win. In return, maybe they could do something for him. Because actually, he's been trapped in Phantasma for a while and there is a way to get out. However, his memories are very murky and he doesn't understand exactly why that is, except that if he finds a contestant strong enough to help him, maybe he can actually relieve himself from Phantasma, find a way out. So that is how Ophelia and him actually end up working together. Because before Ophelia entered Phantasma, she actually heard his voice when she was kind of just visiting the manor by accident, by chance. And he mentioned that if for him to be able to get out of Phantasma, he'd need a heart and a key. And the reason why she was drawn to the manor, even before all this happened, was because as a necromancer, that's what you do. You kind of help those either living or the dead, what they call the dead being apparitions or ghosts, and try and cross to the other side, or otherwise, use your necromancy abilities for whatever purpose it would serve for the benefit of whoever she's helping. But the necromancy business that they were in was basically to help people however they needed help with that their powers could be useful for. So it's very intriguing how this entire story unfolds from them working together. Ophelia needing to find her sister Genevieve, using Blackwell who knows everything about Phantasma, and then him hoping that she can help him find what he needs to be able to get away from Phantasma. And of course, they end up falling for each other and finding their situation very complicated, because if Ophelia is not able to find what it is that he wants, because that is the promise they made with the Blood Compact, she ends up losing 10 years of her life to him. And later on, as the story develops, finds that he doesn't want her to end up losing 10 years of her life, and that they do want to be able to escape from this on their own. But my God, the story, the plot, the twist in the end and everything, and the spiciness also that happens between the phantom and this necromancy mortal being is just, whoo, like, there definitely are some things in this book that I felt that either was starting to kind of lose pace, but then it was brought back, or that the story was starting to revolve more in the romance more than anything. However, I really carried on and I finished this within a day. Well, I started this yesterday and I finished it today, so probably within 24 hours. It's because the way it was written made it very visually appealing in my head. Not literally, but in your head, you could really visualize how things were being laid out. And I stuck to it because I could see it. I could see the movie, the book, the story unfolding in my head. And it was very clear how things were happening, and how, especially the spicy scenes, and how the trials were going to be about. And that plot twist at the end, oh my God, the devil himself, and how Phantasma came to be and why it exists was just, it was really good. So I really enjoyed reading Phantasma. It's one of those reads where I'm like, I got hooked, I got reeled in, and I need to know. I need to keep going to the next, to the next, to the next. I love the budding romance that came to be with the female main character and the male main character. I love the element of the trials in here as well. More than the physical, it was a lot of mental challenges too. Again, from the very beginning, where you have to decode a cryptic message from each devil, get into it, try and figure out what it is. If you can't think of things fast enough, you just might die. That element of being able to use your wit as well and, using things to your advantage. Again, there were other things that I felt that needed more clarity and how things were going. However, overall, I really enjoyed reading this book. In terms of these fantasy books with trials, this is one of those that's up there for me. The caveats as well of entering in Phantasma, they always tell you that, fall in love at your own risk, because apparently you get cursed when you fall in love in Phantasma. And there's a lot of close proximity in this. Again, you're stuck in this manor, a very lavish manor, for 9 days you're in close proximity with people that you either have to deal with, fight, kill, or be smart enough to work with. It's a challenge not to fall in love, especially when you're being faced with whatever you're faced. I mean, that's how Ophelia and Blackwell got closer, was because at every end of the trial, she needed a distraction. And the distraction he provided very well indeed, and very visual from this book. I think psychologically too, right? A lot of people fall in love when they have to face something together, especially something like the trials. Forced proximity paired with danger and the need to save each other and all these things like that, and newfound realization, and that person is right there in that moment. A lot of things can happen. So Phantasma definitely brought out that element in this book very well. And the complications as well between Blackwell and Ophelia, and how initially they're supposed to be just business partners trying to get out of this and be able to get what they want, and things get so complicated real quick, and they end up really falling for each other, but know that their time is limited because they're literally in here for just 9 days. Again, a lot happened in just those 8 days, because technically she didn't even need to make it to the 9th day already. She made it to the 9th trial, but not exactly the 9th day. But and the reveal of Phantasma, the devil in the end, and just how everything came to be. It's a very tragic story. It's a tragic love story, how Phantasma came to be. And that is why likely that the curse is that, fall in love at your own risk, but know that you will be cursed if you fall in love while in Phantasma. So, again, I really enjoyed this read. I loved being able to visualize the entire story in my head. And it really transported me into the world of Phantasma and what it is they were going to do and the things that were happening in here. Again, this is one of my favorite reads so far in terms of the fantasy trials world and forced proximity type of romance and things like that. So it was a very good read. I enjoyed reading this. If any of you have read this, I would love to hear your thoughts as well on Phantasma, what you liked about it. Again, there are other things also that was worth noting, but the things that I felt lacked wasn't enough to make me stop reading this. That's how much I enjoyed this. So I focus on the things that I actually enjoyed in here and really clung on to that. It's all for the story. That's why I read, so that I could enjoy a moment in time, even if it is living vicariously through fictional characters and all that. But I loved it. I enjoyed it. So that's Phantasma. And I can't wait to read the second, which is actually Enchantra. Just based on the synopsis, it's now Genevieve's turn, probably, for a budding romance. And instead of Phantasma, it's another world. It's in Enchantra. Because, by the way, there are many different devils, many, many, many of them. So this is probably, Enchantra was concocted by one type of devil and their world, and then probably Enchantra, I believe, is going to be another type. Maybe it's the same. I don't know. However, just based off what I'm understanding from this book, I don't think it's going to be the same. So yes, if in Enchantra it says that the only thing deadlier than losing the game is losing your heart, because if you fall in love, you'll be cursed. Here with Enchantra, it says there's only one rule: never ever trust your heart. Ooh. Nothing is truly eternal. So I can't wait to start this after having read this. So Phantasma, one for the books. A book. One of my fave books so far.